Before we jump into the demonstration, I'd like to spend a minute talking about this lab. When we look at the security landscape over the last couple of years, FY 2024 and 2025, most organizations already have passwords and some form of multi-factor authentication in place. And we continue to see phishing attacks, credential theft, and account compromise happening every day. So the reason is simple. Attackers are no longer targeting system first, they are targeting user identities. And at the same time, users expect a smoother experience. They don't want to remember multiple passwords or go through a different login process for every application they use. So the challenge for organization today is how do we improve security without making life harder for our users. So that's where identity federation and centralized authentication come in. Instead of every application handling authentication on its own, application trusts a central identity provider to authenticate users and enforce security policies consistently. And in today's lab, I'll demonstrate how Thales SafeNet Trust Access acts as the trust identity provider using SAML Federation. So we will walk through the authentication flow and look at several authentication methods, including ritual, syncs, and device-bound passkeys. And as we go through the demonstration, I like to focus on two things. So first, how simple the user experience is, and second, how the security controls are enforced. So let's get started and see it in action. Okay, so let me walk you through how SAML authentication works in this lab. First, the user opens a browser and navigates to the demo web application. And when the user accesses the application, the service provider, which is SimpleSAMLphp in this lab, generates a SAML authentication request and redirects the user to Thales STA, acting as the identity provider. And at the start login page, the user enters their AD credentials and complete multi-factor authentication. So in this lab, I will demonstrate three authentication methods: ritual, syncs, and device-bound passkey. And once authentication is successful, STA generates a SAML assertion and sends it back to the service provider using HTTP post response. And then the service provider validates the assertion, establish the user session, and grant access to the application. And finally, the user is redirected to the welcome page where we can see the authenticate username, the SAML attributes, and that were included in the assertion